Well, we finally had our first look at the Super Mario Bros. Movie the other day through way of that Nintendo Direct. And for the most part, looking around online, people seem fairly happy with the presentation and the 2-minute teaser that we saw. I understand the Mario voice, still controversial with Chris Pratt, but I don't think that is enough to overshadow how good and the high quality nature of what we've seen so far. And it's led me to think more and more about where we're heading with the gaming industry now and how I think this movie, depending on how things go, could drastically change things for Nintendo going forward in the future, especially when it comes to the strategy around their gaming releases, and we're going to talk about that here today. Guys, if you enjoy these videos, make sure that like button, and if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. Heading towards 700,000 subscribers right now, and I think when we get there, do some sort of giveaway. It's been a while since I've done one, mostly because YouTube's been kind of sketchy with different links that you use to do giveaways and stuff, but I'll figure out a way to make it happen. I think 700,000 is one of those big milestones. We should do some sort of giveaway, something fun there. Anyway, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. It's coming out April 7th. It's been reportedly in concept and production and development for nearly 7 years. It's been a while. I would probably put it next to Nintendo's big push for their theme parks. I mean, it takes a lot of planning to do that as well. So seems like it kind of matches up where Nintendo is looking outside of just games. Now, they've done this before with other movies in the past, like obviously the Super Mario movie from way back in the day that I guess is considered a cult classic at this point. It's one of those it's so bad it's good kind of movies, sort of like the older Mortal Kombats or Street Fighter. But in this case, Nintendo clearly going, all in, bringing even Shigeru Miyamoto himself in to help out and really work to direct this movie and put it more in line with his vision of the game series, which is great for it to all line up and be considered even canon, sure. But looking at this movie in particular in April and looking at what we've seen recently with the rise of TV series, especially direct to streaming and movies, I'm expecting some pretty big things for the Super Mario movie when it comes to the overall gross revenue at the box office. The Sonic movie, Sonic 2 in particular, was able to do over $400 million at the box office, which is, I'd say, pretty good for, a movie based on Sonic the Hedgehog. But Mario is a larger intellectual property. Mario is more well-known, and obviously with the budget behind this movie and Illumination, really, putting some effort in on this one, I have a feeling this movie could potentially hit $1 billion in overall gross revenue, which would be massive for Nintendo, especially them returning to the big screen. And I think Nintendo understands the possibilities right now, looking even outside of just gaming, when it comes to their intellectual properties. They had purchased Dynamo Pictures months ago, and they've now worked to transition them over to Nintendo Pictures, an entire rebranding, putting their company name and logo right there front and center. And there were thoughts that maybe that studio would be used to help out with cutscenes in games. I think Nintendo has bigger ideas in mind for this studio. They could still help out, maybe a mocap and different things for games, but I kind of feel like this studio is going to be built up heavily in order to tackle media outside of games when it comes to TV and movies. And they could also probably work to consult back and forth with other studios outside of Nintendo. Like, look at what we're seeing with this Mario movie with Illumination. Obviously, Shigeru Miyamoto being the go-between here for Nintendo and Illumination. I think you could see Nintendo Pictures kind of play that role with smaller intellectual properties, especially with the market now, where we see such a big push from these streaming services, whether it's Amazon, Netflix, HBO Max. The list goes on and on and on, and they're just throwing money at anything and everything just to get more and more content out there, which means Nintendo can come back to the drawing board, look around at some of their intellectual properties that maybe aren't set up right now with the idea of a big budget being put behind it, but you could technically go to one of these streaming services. They can pay you for the rights to them, and working with Nintendo Pictures, maybe consult and come up with a movie or series for F-Zero or Metroid, although Metroid has had more of a push recently, but I mean, a series could go a long way next to Metroid Prime 4 when that's ready to go at some point. I think Nintendo is going to keep things like The Legend of Zelda and probably even Splatoon more in-house when it comes to doing TV series or full-on movies, but I wouldn't be shocked if they really start shopping around some of these intellectual properties to see what people can pitch and come up with. Can you imagine a Kid Icarus or a Fire Emblem? Maybe Golden Sun finally gets something there, or this could be the way that Nintendo does something with the Mother series. That could actually be a pretty good anime maybe there. I even think Kirby, which has been on a roll recently, sure, why not do some sort of TV series with one of these streaming services? You know, the one that I would like to see, and I think it could have some very interesting twists and turns, is a Punch-Out series, maybe even a Punch-Out movie, just with some of the characters involved, and you kind of play it up like almost like a Rocky series, a Rocky character. I think that could be a lot of fun. But when it comes to Nintendo's strategy, let's say the Super Mario movie is extremely successful. One, you'll probably see a follow-up. Why wouldn't you? Like, they would do something on top of that to continue momentum with a Super Mario Bros. 2 movie or something there. But then I think you would see Nintendo maybe position some of these big movie or TV releases near or around the release of games. I believe there is a new 2D Mario in development, as rumors have suggested, and I think a good time to release it is first half of next year to coincide with the Super Mario Bros. Movie release. A 2D Mario game is much more approachable for the mainstream audience. I know we take it for granted because we play so many games and we get a 3D Mario game, we're like, all right, cool, let's jump into this and start playing. But the 3D movement can be pretty intimidating or annoying, confusing even, to someone who doesn't play a lot of games, or maybe has never really gotten into video games, whereas a 2D plane for a Mario game, it's one of the reasons it became so popular when it showed up, because it's not a difficult thing to grasp and understand and then start playing and see relative success right out of the gate. And that would be the idea here, is Nintendo would pull people in, especially from more of the mainstream audience outside of games, with the movie, and they would then look to see what's out there to play maybe on that Switch or just in Nintendo's ecosystem at all. I mean, technically you could download Mario games on your phone, so some may leave the movie theater and start checking out Mario Kart Tour or something right then and there. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if Nintendo released a 2D Mario game and it saw incredible success because of that movie pulling in so many eyeballs. You see right now online just the overall discourse around this movie, a lot of being positive, but just a lot of talk in general is trending all over Twitter. You see it popping up in Google Trends towards the top, and you have mainstream actors, big actors, doing the voices for these characters. And yes, I'm sure they could have found a better Mario voice for the character, right, instead of Chris Pratt. But Chris Pratt's name, means something to people who aren't as into games and stuff. They might check out the movie and then go from there. So it all kind of comes together to more or less target an audience that isn't already invested in Nintendo's games. Now, that's not to say that we won't enjoy the movie because we're into the games or anything, but I do believe that if this works, it could actually benefit us, like the hardcore gamers, the gamers that are really plugged into this whole thing, very much so. If you think about it, we could see Nintendo really tap into a lot of their older intellectual properties that don't get as much shine as a lot of their larger games that are a safe bet, I'll say, for the big budgets. If you look around, many companies are doing this currently, and in fact, some are able to revive properties that have struggled. Take Cyberpunk, that's like one of the biggest examples right now. Cyberpunk 2077, out of the gate, falls flat on its face. It was a really bad launch. It was to the point where CD Projekt got crushed, their stock prices fall, Edgerunners comes out, all of a sudden everyone's checking out Cyberpunk. It breaks its all-time concurrent record for 130 or 140,000 people playing at once just on Steam. That's not counting the other platforms like PlayStation and Xbox that it's on, and it's just off to the races there. I can bet that we will see their new intellectual property from CD Projekt have some sort of series ready to go around launch, or at least within a year, because it worked out so well there. It also worked for their Witcher series. The Witcher, great series, but when the show came out, a lot of people went to the game and they saw a pretty large spike in sales. It's proven to work as long as the TV series, or in Sonic's case, the movie, is good. People will then follow up and see what else is out there. And oh, look, there's a bunch of games to check out. We see Sony leveraging this heavily right now. The Uncharted movie comes out. We have the Uncharted Legacy of Thieves collection release on the PlayStation 5 and now on PC. The Last of Us Part 1 gets the full remake in anticipation of the Last of Us series that's coming out next year. Gran Turismo is getting its own show, which is strange. But apparently that is going to be a pretty big deal there in the racing community. Twisted Metal. That was another one that I was like, how are they going to make a show about this? But that's happening. And we have a game that's rumored to go alongside of it. And even Gravity Rush. That might be the biggest thing here is when I saw Gravity Rush, I realized, I said, you know what? These shows or movies that are maybe direct to streaming don't need the kind of budget that we see going into some of these big AAA titles. We hear about some of these budgets nearing $200 million with production, development, and marketing. I mean, these TV series and shows that are just going to be popping up on Amazon and Netflix, sure, there is budget behind them, but it's nowhere near what we've seen from some of these games, which means you can take chances. If anything, you can have Amazon or HBO or Netflix front a good bit of the money, and you could just try it out and see if maybe one of these intellectual properties can catch on, and then you can build up to games. And that's one of the biggest reasons I'm all for this push right now with the gaming industry, with a lot of these companies looking into alternative forms of media to bring attention to some of these intellectual properties. So it's exciting stuff to see what we get here going forward, and I'm actually becoming more and more interested to see what the next big announcement is, especially when I see something like The Medium popping up, getting its own series. It's like, how is that happening? But hey, take a chance. You never know. Maybe it translates even better into the movie or TV scene, and you can build on top of that with gaming. So interesting stuff there. But let me know what you guys think about this one down below. Do you think the Super Mario movie could be a big enough success that Nintendo maybe changes things up going forward when it comes to the releases of their games, and maybe look more into their intellectual property backlog and find some stuff that they can pitch to Amazon or Netflix or maybe the big screen? Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.